alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And try one more time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. Welcome to our very first IAW event 2014. My name is Sharif Abdullah, and I will be your host for today. Every year, the Muslim Students Association and a number of co-sponsoring organizations hosts Islam Awareness Week. It's a week full of interesting lectures, exhibits, performances, and delicious foods in the hopes of promoting mutual understanding and fostering campus-wide friendships. Over a week of exciting activities, the MSA hopes to provide an insight into the Islamic way of life and the 1.6 billion Muslims who follow it. Through this, we hope to reduce misconceptions about the world's second largest religion. So before we start today, we're going to begin with a short recitation by Brother Minhaj. Where's Brother?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. All praise and thanks belong to God, the Lord of everything that exists, the most beneficent, the most merciful, the only owner of the day of resurrection. You alone do we worship, and you alone do we ask for help. Guide us in the straight path, the way of those on whom you have bestowed your grace, not of those who have earned your anger, nor of those who went astray.
Thank you, Brother Minhaj, for that beautiful recitation. And I hope you guys are all enjoying all the foods and the displays around the room. If you want some more, feel free to get up at any time and put some more, because there's plenty of food. All right, well, now seeing that it's 4 o'clock, we will be beginning with our a panel with 4 of our wonderful students, and it's titled Inroads of the Heart and Pathway to Peace. So we have 4 individuals who will be sharing their personal journeys to peace. And our panelists include Sister Sadia, if you could raise your hand. So that's Sister Sadia. She is a senior psychology major here at Loyola and biology minor. She's from the northwest suburbs of Huntley, where she's lived for the past 13 years. Sadia has a passion for interfaith work, be it on campus with the yellow couch that you guys be seeing Damon every so often, or off campus at Ramadan evening prayers in the basement of an old church. All right, so that's Sister Sadia. Sister Esther Wong, right there, she's raising her hand. She graduated from Loyola Quinlan School of Business in December 2013 with a major in accounting. She'll be starting her job at a Big 4 accounting firm this summer. Sister Esther converted to Islam in the end of 2012. Brother Trent Carl, if you could raise your hand. Brother Trent. He's a graduate of DePaul University. Trent was the educational coordinator for the United Muslims Moving Ahead at DePaul, which is basically their version of the MSA titled Ummah. And he is vice president of he was vice president of DePaul's SJP, and Trent converted to Islam in 2007. And finally, we have Brother Leif, who is a senior at Loyola, biophysics major, and that's all he wanted for his introduction. All right. So without further ado, we'll begin our program. Please give a warm welcome to our wonderful panelists. Each panelist will share their personal journeys in search of peace, and we'd like to invite all our guests to ask any questions you guys may have. And we will begin with Sister Sadia. Does the mic work, or would you like this one? Is it for you?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Okay, so I was really worried about this speech because I'm not very but I kind of want to appeal to the crowd. Inshallah, we have so many diverse spaces in the crowd, which is the theme of our week. And a lot of us feel that we need to have this big revelation or spiritual journey, but sometimes it's in the small things that create the journey. And that's a bit cliche to say, it's about the climb, not the destination. And for a lot of us that have been born and raised in a Muslim family, like a lot of us feel like there is no journey, like we're just Muslims, we're just kind of doing what we're doing. But let me give you a little, different perspective. Probably like all of the journeys that all of you may be taking, who are born and raised in Muslim families. So as a young kid, my parents have always been very, observant of like religious traditions and even cultural traditions. So I was that one kid that you'd always see at the mosque, like playing with the other girls, whatever. It wasn't like something big for me. It was like a social thing. Like I had like my mosque friends, and then I had my Sunday school friends, and I had my, Quran teacher, Quran class friends. So I was one of those kids. Like I was everywhere. But I don't think Islam as a faith really started connecting with me until I moved to where Sharif mentioned Huntley, which is it's a very non-diverse area. And we moved there, I think it was 10 days before 9/11. And that area was known for being kind of racial and prejudiced-like. And at that time, I started reflecting on myself, someone who's always, been very, not necessarily proud, but I was just very traditional in my ways. And I started reflecting where I was like, oh, I shouldn't say that I'm Muslim, I shouldn't say that I'm this or that. And so then I started thinking, like, what does it mean to be Muslim? Does it mean, are you a Muslim just by, because you're that person that goes to the mosque every day? Are you, a Muslim just because you say salam? Like, what makes you a Muslim? Like, what is your identifier as a Muslim? And if I don't say at school that I'm a Muslim, does that make me a bad Muslim? So these are a lot of the questions that I started thinking up of. And, when I started asking these questions, a lot of people had said, a lot of this stuff that you're doing may be cultural or traditional, but go back to the fundamentals, the basics. Go back to the Quran, go back to Salah, and really see what it means to you as a Muslim American living in this world. As a female living in this world, what does it mean to me? And so I think that's where, my journey sort of started, where I was like, yeah, I do this stuff, yeah, like my parents tell me to pray, but like, what am I doing when I'm praying? And when I started looking into it, I just started with the first, one of the first things that we think before doing Salah, we have to make an intention of Salah. And just the fact of intention, I was like, when you think about it and your feelings and just creating a mindset for yourself, it like puts you in this state of awe. And when you don't put yourself in that state of awe, it's like, okay, well, what are you doing? We're just going through the motions. So I started thinking, I was like, I'm making this intention. Like, I need to make this intention. And what is my intent? I'm going to say the words, yeah, I'm praying towards, a lot of you know the intention towards the Qibla and Makkah. But what does that mean? What does that mean to me? And then I looked into like the just the physical aspects of it. And the one thing that was like, it was one of those like mind-blown moments. And I tend to find like beauty in small things. So humor me if like this is not interesting to you. But just the physical part of saying Allahu Akbar. I don't know if you know what like for the non-Muslims in the room, it would look like this, like Allahu Akbar. And that's the start of the physical part of your prayer. And what that means is like God is great, and your hands putting back means like there's nothing in this world. Like I'm leaving the world behind me, and I'm just submitting myself. And not even submitting myself to like Islam or like what my parents are telling you. It's like this is your conversation. Like what do you want to get out of it? Like what is what? And these are the things that I kept saying. Like I was like, my prayer needs to be like this. Like I need to really understand why I'm doing it and what's the connection I'm trying to get. And so again, like I started doing all these, like reflective things, and then someone had mentioned something to me, and I have a lot of conversations with my brother who I'm very thankful to have, and he's been a very big part in my spiritual journey. But just the fact of your heartbeat, it's so silent in this room, right? I'm sure if you put your hand on your neck, you can feel the pulse. You just do that. Just feel it. Now take a deep breath in. Now take a deep breath out. What if you couldn't take that deep breath out? What would happen? You know, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you. He's the one that's letting you take that deep breath in. He's the one that's letting you take that deep breath out. By His will, you have that pulse. By His will, your heart is beating. By His will, my hands are trembling. I don't know. But, you know, it comes down to that where, like, your faith is not, it's not like this cultural thing, it's not this traditional thing. Though those are, you know, that makes your identity, but at the core of it all, like, you need to realize that, you know, the humanity, that we're like God's, you know, most beloved creatures. We were given free will because we're the most beloved of His creatures. And with that, again, you know, I started doing a lot of interfaith work because I felt like this point really just resonated with me, where we're all human. We're all human. And to, like, love everyone else around you makes you love yourself. And when you love yourself, that's when you start loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you find that this love, or like love in its like entirety, it's such a divine feeling almost. You know, when you're happy, like when you're really, really, really happy, think of those moments when you're really happy. Doesn't it feel like almost otherworldly? Like, why do people say, oh, I'm like floating on the moon right now, or the cloud, or whatever that phrase is? It's because it's almost like it's otherworldly, and that those emotions are coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though I know sadness and anger just can be just as strong, but like these feelings of happiness and love is, you know, has a power to, you know, it's so much more powerful. And that I think I just started like thinking about these little things where it's like, what does it mean to me? You know, the fact that I'm alive, that I'm breathing, and that I'm Muslim, and then being Muslim means that I'm loving everyone else. Being Muslim means that I'm trying to be good to my neighbors. Being Muslim means that I'm trying to be a good role model, not for myself, but for the community, to be active in the community, no matter whether it's, you know, the Muslim community, or, as Sharifa mentioned, like, you know, or just the community in which you live in. And that's so important because from, again, where I live, we don't have any mosques. So having that conversation with, you know, a person, you know, a Christian person who you're trying to say, oh, do you mind if we use your basement for our religious prayers? You know, trying to appeal to that, you know, love and that, you know, adoration for something. And then, you know, that's just sort of, I don't know. I think I just said what I need to say. And so hopefully you feel inspired. Inshallah, just reflect on yourself. And a lot of times it's not about the journey. It's not even about the hijab, you guys. Like, I started wearing hijab like 2 years ago, but this journey started a lot longer before that. And sometimes it's not about like the outward stuff. Start on the inside, and don't let anyone else like judge you for like who you are, or who you should be, or blah blah blah. Fill in the blank. Because that's society. That's not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created prayer, created dua and prayer, salah. Because what you're doing when you say Allahu Akbar is you're throwing the entire world back. It doesn't matter what your friend is saying, that your hijab is like, you know, skewed and like a strand is, you know, falling out. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he wants to accept your prayer, He will, inshallah. So anyway, so that's a little bit of a reflection of
Thank you, Sister Sadia, for that, for sharing with us that beautiful story, and the fact that it's so personal and we got to get a glimpse of that is so wonderful. She mentioned, what I got from hers is most of it was reflection and asking yourself questions, and I think before we move on, like, that's something for everyone here to think about. You don't have to be sitting here on a panel to have your own journey. It's the question, like, she's Sadia, I'm Sharifa, every single person, you know, why are we here? There must be a purpose. And so think about that as you listen to the rest of our panelists. And yeah, thank you. So I think next we're going to go with Brother Trent.
Cool. Thank you. How's everyone doing? Hope everyone's doing okay. So I'm not a very good storyteller, but I wanted to start with Sister's point that she opened with the idea of multiplicity. We're one of the things I respect about this panel is that there's not just convert Muslims here, you have what some people term legacy Muslims as well. And legacy Muslims have just as much of a transition period, an enlightenment period, a decision-making period, as much as a convert. So sometimes we have these panels and we throw some converts up there, you clap for them because you think, wow, that was an amazing story, but each and everybody here has just as amazing story as any sort of convert or like that. So just to begin, I was raised in a Christian family, was a relatively religious young person, kind of a quiet person. I would ask questions as a young child, maybe 8, 9 years old, like, how do I know that everybody else is real? Right? How do I know that I'm not the only real person here and everybody else is some sort of robotic entity that's here to like function around me, going through this dreamland, and I have no idea what's real, right? Those are the type of questions I asked, and probably what led me to be relatively religious pretty early. I decided of my own volition to be baptized as a Christian when I was 13. And then probably by the age of 16, 17, had some alienation from Christian theology. Began to question certain tenets of Christianity's worldview in terms of the cosmological worldview about the relationship with God, with the prophets of God, with Jesus, etc. And though I felt I was no longer Christian by maybe the age of 16, 17, I did still believe in the idea of God. So I still maintained prayer and maintained some sort of relationship with the higher cosmos or whatever. But my theology wasn't firmly grounded in a religious tradition. So the theme of the panel is how did one search for peace, and search for peace, that kind of thing. So I believe it's going to show my age. I graduated high school in 2006, and it was the summer of 2006 that many of my friends, I grew up in Houston, Texas, many of my friends began to leave. The fall of 2006, they decided to leave to schools in the Texas area while I was going to stay in Houston. And what that brought about, in me at least, was a sense of alienation from the people that I knew for 12 years, 12, 13 years, most of the bulk of my life. And that kind of sense of void inside leads one to kind of do some of the reflection that the sister mentioned earlier. Why am I doing what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Where am I going? What am I seeking? What am I grounded in? What am I rooted in? 2006, summer 2006, some of you may be old enough to remember, politically conscious enough to remember, there was a big political war in the Middle East at the time between a country and then another entity. And that war also led me to begin thinking about some of the discourse in television, talk show, radio. It led me to also begin to question my sense of national identity. Am I the patriot that I was supposed to be raised for? I'm half white, so I have this patriotic background. My father was in the military. Were these ideals that I was taught as an American correct? Are they real? Do they play out in the real world as I was taught as a young child? So this duality here, this sense that my friends, the people that I grew up with, the people who shaped me throughout my life, were going to leave. And then this question about my national identity, which is, for whatever reason, so important to many of us in the modern world. These two things really shook me. These two things led me to begin studying other faiths, other worldviews. I began to wonder about different national identities. I began to read Foreign Affairs magazine, try to see people, culture and nationhood from other perspectives. I studied Buddhism. Actually, I almost became Jewish at one point, because the one thing I kept coming back to was this idea of the oneness of reality, right? God's wholeness, God's oneness. So at some point it became a decision for me. I'm no longer Christian. I've spoken with my family about this fact. My family had even confided in me that they had their own questions about kind of some biblical teaching. And now I was at this crossroads of deciding, do I transition into another faith tradition? There's two faith traditions that I was considering. One's actually Judaism and Islam. And so then I began to focus my attention on these two traditions. And at some point in late 2006 or so, I had made a decision firmly in my heart that I believed in Islam. But I wasn't ready to take the leap or take the plunge or whatever. And I think something my age might again show here is a rapid flux of culture. I think most of the students here, you guys probably, by the time you were in high school, maybe even junior high, Facebook was like a big deal. But for me, I was on that edge where Facebook was a very new thing. But my religious transition was a very Facebook-oriented transition. That's how I networked with many Muslims. I didn't know personally, I knew maybe one or two Muslims, and they weren't particularly devout. So my religious transition was enhanced or quickened or maybe made possible by this technology called Facebook, thanks to Mr. Zuckerberg. So it was kind of a weird transition because you hear a lot of people's transitions are firmly, they convert in a mosque, for instance. I converted one day when my parents left to go eat dinner in my room. Right? Somebody had told me how to say the Shahada. I wrote it down on the legal pad. I went to my room one night, I think like 9 p.m., said my Shahada, waited for some miraculous thing to happen, and it didn't happen. But I was Muslim. The other thing I wanted to point out was that you talk often about conversion. But conversion is something rooted quite firmly in the Christian tradition. And that word does not really resonate with the Islamic tradition. Christian tradition has a sense that you accept Christ as your Lord and Savior, and you are now saved. So to convert something is like a kind of a quick and holistic process. And the Muslim tradition, probably the better word, is a better word to use in terms of context, not in terms of a better or worse concept. But a better word for moving into the Islamic worldview would be transition. Because one accepts an idea, but then one builds for quite some time. One does not become a saint, or a sinner become a saint overnight. So my transition in this search for peace culminated, I think, at the end of 2007. I became Muslim January 2007. But that comes with a whole lot of baggage. Your family is like weirded out, right? Your friends are a little weirded out. And sometimes you feel a little bit lost. You've met a bunch of new people. I started going to a mosque around April 2007. So there's all these new people around you, but you're wondering, am I really rooted in this? Am I going to survive this movement? In December 2007, I had the opportunity to take a cultural trip to Iran. And when I went to Iran, it happened to be during Christmas time. And my whole family gets together at Christmas time. But my extended family didn't know about my transition. I think the day after Christmas, my mother called me. I had the number at the time. And she said, you're going to have to explain this to everybody, because everybody's quite mad with us. But then the next thing she said is what I think helped me to stabilize as a Muslim. She said, but we have taken all the flack and we're here for you, we're supporting you, we're telling everybody to calm down. He's still our child, he's still our son, and you need to continue to do what you feel like you need to do. And I think that's something kind of important for us to always remember our families and their role in developing our souls, really. Even if they're not Muslim, if they're Muslim, not Muslim, practicing, not practicing, something else, atheist, whatever, they've probably done something, very many things that help you develop kind of your own sense of peace and sense of self, no matter your disagreements. So I think that was a culminating point, and then obviously it's 2014 now. There's many things that challenge your sense of peace, but always knowing that I can drive back to Colorado where my family lives, take a break, and be with them, despite their differences in religious orientation, etc. I think that's where I found it.
It's a really good note to end on. Let's all remember our families and the huge role that they may have played in our lives. Next, we will have Sister Esther share her story.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming today. And I'm Esther, and originally I'm from China. And as most of you know, in China, mostly people don't have religion. So my family, they are non-religion. So, but like when I was a junior in college, I met a guy from church, and he's just walking around in the campus, and he talked to me, hey, are you interested in God? I said, yeah, sure. And then he started like talk to me what is God, who's Jesus, like all of the things that he know. And then in 3 hours he said, so right now do you believe in God? I said yes. And then he told me like say something. And like after I followed that, he said, okay, right now you're a Christian now. So that is my way, like to be a Christian at the very beginning. That is how I know there's God. And after that, so after I graduated from college, then I came to Loyola to do my master. So so here I met a friend like who's a Muslim, and then I went to downtown Islamic Center during the Ramadan 2012. Then there I met lots of real Muslims that I saw how people do salat. And like I feel it's amazing, like it's very peaceful that how can so many people they're doing the prayer at the same time and the same direction. And I feel very, very powerful. And then at the end of 2012, I was suffering some hardship. And then one night I saw a dream that I was in a classroom and there are lots of people in the room. And outside the window there's a moving light. It's kind of like sun, but it's not sun. And then like suddenly all of the people start to bend down and like do the same thing as what I saw in the mosque, and people start to pray to the light and start to say, oh, this is Allah. And then when I wake up, I try to search what is the dream meaning. Because like in China, we like to know the meaning of the dream, so we have some website to explain what is the dream. Then I to search, and suddenly I saw, or by accident, I saw there's a website called myislamicdream.com. And when there it says the bright light means the great tide from God is blessing from God. Then I realized, well, maybe this is a sign from God. Then I started to search, and I became Muslim. And after that, I tried to involve in the Muslim community, such as Loyola Muslim Student Association, like MSA. And also there's a Chicago Halakha, is a sister book reading club. And also there's a AIC, American Islamic Center or college, that they have the classes that's told that teach people an introduction to Islamic. But all of the people there, they're all volunteering there, and all of them they are converted to Islamic. And also the downtown Islamic Center, they have the book reading, the Quran reading. And I at that time I was doing the internship at downtown, so every Friday I go to the IC, Downtown Islamic Center, to do the Friday Jummah prayer. And at there I met another sister, her name is Ahadab, she's a student from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And she told me how to do the salah like one step by one step. And also like she heard I converted, she got more excited than me. And she told all of the sisters that she know. And I started to receive all of the gifts, like the books or there's a book from another sister. I never saw her, but she's also a student here. She's from Saudi, and she said she gave me the book like how to pray salah from A to Z, and also the Oxford Virgin Quran, like, and also others brothers who I don't know how they know that I converted, and they started to give me the books and also the prayer fees. But that is the first thing that I got, like lots of gifts. and lots of hugs from sisters and oh, congratulations. But I feel that because I'm not born and raised as a Muslim, so whenever I met a sister like Celia, who's born Muslim, I said, "Why you're so lucky that your whole family are Muslim?" And so like, because my whole family are not Muslim. So a week ago, I went to a trip to China. Like my whole family are there. So before I go there, I told them that I'm a Muslim now. They said, "What?" So I said, "Oh, there's no difference between like, because they know I was Christian, and they said, were you believing in God?" I said, "Yeah, but like right now I still believe in God. Allah is the Arabic word of God, so there's only one God." She said, "Oh, okay." And I told them like, and then I said the only difference. I told them the only difference is I don't drink alcohol now, and I'm not eating pork now. But like there, the food cooking, they put lots of pork. So they say, "But you've been doing this for more than 20 years." I say, "Yeah, but I have my reason to do that because like pork is not like clean. That's why we don't eat it. And like alcohol, we don't drink it just in case some bad thing happens." And then like they're very supportive. So when I went back, they still cook, but they put it at the end of the table so they can eat it. Like they have special menu for me. And also one of my aunts, she went to buy the halal meat for me, which is very sweet. Yeah. And also, so when I hung out with my friends, they also asked like, "Oh, why you become Muslim now?" I said, "Oh, there's only one God." They start to explain the whole thing, like there's only one God. Like the different religion, that's only the different version of God. Like God made the whole world. And then he started to send different messengers. Like first one is Musa, and then Musa bring a book, and the people who follow Musa become Jewish. And then things get worse. God sent another prophet, like messenger, Jesus, and he bring a book, Bible. People who follow him became Christian, and then things get worse again. And God sent the last prophet, Muhammad prophet, be upon him, and bring a book is Quran, and people who follow him became Muslim. So I think, like, so I told him, right now, I'm the latest version of the people who believe in God. So like, they say, "Oh, okay," but like, I got really surprised. Is one of my uncle-in-law. He is not he's not interested in God, or he's not believing God at all. But he's very interested in my theory. He said, "Wow, like I think he should be inspired by God." And so when I came back, I met Sadia and then she told me, "Oh, there's a panel. Do you want to come?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And hopefully my story can inspire someone who's interested in God. But like, there's only one God. So right now we are the latest version. And yeah, and hopefully you can find something from my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther, for sharing that non-traditional, I guess I'm going to say, journey. And I hope she's found her inner peace. I hope we all continue to search for our inner peace. We are going to end the panel with our last speaker, but without further ado.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, good afternoon. Inshallah everyone's doing really well. Inshallah everybody got to, God willing, we say inshallah. Everybody got to enjoy some food as well. So the man who's supposed to speak here today has very big shoes, and I cannot fill those shoes, but I will do my best inshallah to kind of give my kind of a little bit in like my journey and how I came to kind of peace within the religion. Right off the bat I'll kind of say that I'm what Brother Trent referred to as a legacy Muslim, which is, it sounds kind of cool, but I don't know if I saw it that way in the beginning. So as a legacy Muslim, so like I was born to Muslim parents, and I think like the key to understanding what a legacy Muslim is like there comes a point where you're gonna make some sort of distinction within yourself. So, we're all born into different faith traditions. You may be born into a Christian faith tradition, a Jewish faith tradition, a Buddhist faith tradition, and so on and so forth. So, I was born into a Muslim faith tradition. But I don't think I knew exactly what that meant, growing up and, up until, just my first couple of years of high school, and then even, that didn't really come to fruition until the later the first couple of years of college. So I think like what it started out was when I was younger, I would always question things. So like, why do certain things happen? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? I had a lot of anxieties of the unknown. So what's going to happen next? What's going to happen in 2 minutes? What's going to happen in 3 hours? Where am I going to be in 4 years? Like there's just question after question after question. And and I'm very thankful for the parents I grew up with. They're very supporting, very helpful. But there eventually came a time where it's just like, they couldn't really answer certain questions from within their own selves. So that's what I say. Like when I say legacy Muslim, I think eventually we come to that crossroads, right? We come to a point in our lives. For some people it's a couple months. For other people, it's 10 years. Other people it's 80 years. There comes a point in your life where you do, you make that distinction in your heart. Am I just, am I going to accept the label that I was born with, or am I going to really search for what my heart's yearning for? So in my case, it's kind of oft repeated within, amongst Muslims is that they were searching for peace, and we see the title of this is Inroads of the Heart, Pathways to Peace. So if you think about really what an inroad is, you have inroads and outroads, right? So inroads to the heart are paths leading to the heart, a pathway to peace. So if you think that road leading into your heart as a pathway to peace, so that means the heart's, the heart is the source of peace. So I think early on I thought, I didn't know the title of the panel early on in my life, but I was thinking, what does the metaphysical heart represent? Sure, there's the heart that's just there, beating and in all its splendor and beauty and amazingness. Is amazingness a word? I'm not really sure, but it is now. It's very true. But yeah, so like, what does that actually mean? What is the metaphysical heart? And you like as Sister Sadia mentioned, you feel it. When you feel it when you reflect on that moment. Why you're breathing, why your heart's beating. These different things. So if we think of like inroads to the heart, pathways to peace, and the heart being the source of peace, right? So this is also something that's very often repeated amongst Muslims, is that Islam comes from the Arabic root, salama, which means salam, which means peace. I'm sorry, and it literally, in its literal form, means submission, Islam. But it's submission towards a greater peace, to an all-pervasive peace. And then if you think of the heart as well, also in Arabic, the Arabic word for heart is qalb, that which fluctuates, that which keeps turning. So it's something that keeps switching back and forth and back and forth. So I think early on that's what kind of got to me. I'm like, why does my heart keep switching? What is that? What's going on? How come sometimes I'm happy, other times I'm sad? Why can't we always be happy? That would be interesting. But I think, just to kind of bring everything to culmination, I don't want to go on too much longer. But if we can really see the heart as being the source of peace, and finding the beauty in the fluctuation, in those times when, maybe the heart is in a state of transition. It's moving from being, very ecstatic and very happy to a state of sadness. But in that fluctuation and in that struggle, there is the beauty, there is the light, there is the peace, as is titled in the panel. I don't want to go on anymore, but Jazakumullah khair. Thank you everyone for hearing the various speakers here today.
Thank you to our wonderful panelists. Can you give them one more applause? At this time, we're going to be taking questions from any of you. So if you have a question, feel free to use your hand. I'll bring the mic over. And if not, I'll ask my question. All right. Vote. Okay. So I'm just going to answer my question in a second. So this is just something general for any of our panelists who wants to answer. Who or what was the most influential part in your search to peace? We'd like to see first. Side down looking at you.
Just keep the trend the question was who's most influential. I have a brother who's not exactly a year older than me, but close. So I like to hold that over. And I feel like both of us were going through a very similar struggle. And what was really interesting was he actually went to a madrasa, which is a school for learning the Quran and memorizing the Quran. And so it was a boarding school. And so at the age of 12, he left. And then I was here by myself, like, I'm like, what's happening? Why can't I go? You know, it was one of those things. And he would come back with all of these different stories and so much more depth of knowledge. And hearing him, I was like, so does that make you a better Muslim than me? Like, is that what it's gonna be now? And I'm gonna tell you, I was slightly envious. I was like, shoot, man, like, he's gonna go to heaven before me, or whatever, you know, or like my parents are gonna love him more. And here you do. But definitely, it really sparked these conversations because he would say, oh, you know, did you hear of this, you know, story or this narration of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? And this is a lesson. And I would always question that. I was like, you know, so what does that mean to me? Like, how's that applicable to me? Like, you know, these people lived so long ago. You know, how am I supposed to apply this to my life? And so we would have these like it would turn into like a yelling battle at 3 in the morning. Mom would come down. She'd be like, "What's going on?" Like, we're spiritually seeking together. Loudly. So that was someone who's pretty influential in my life. But very, very close to that was actually my dad. He's my go-to for all of my questions. He's my go-to when I have questions about like, Dad, what about gay Muslims? And he's like, okay. And I think he really showed me what it's like to really mold together like Western culture and then traditional Islamic values, and then use those questions to fuel more passion for your own faith and the way that you follow it. And he never told me, he's like, oh, that's a bad question, or he never said, you know what, it just, you know, I'm telling you no, and it's no. He never said that. If I was like, oh, Dad, you know, I have these 2 friends and they go out drinking, is it okay if I go? And he never said, no, it's so bad that you can't go because they're terrible people. Never. You know, he never said that. He would like just tell me to reflect about those things. And again, you know, spark with these conversations, and I'd be like, Dad, but you know, my brother said this, or whatever I call him, whatever you call him. So I was like, he said this. What does that mean? So my dad would say, okay, well, you know, let's speak about this. And if he didn't know, he would approach the scholars that he would go to, or he knew personally. He would say, oh, let me go ask the imam. Actually, you know, I don't know that answer. And so him being very, very open to like answering my questions or looking for the answers and not being afraid to say I don't know really inspired me to be like, okay, you know, this is not just fake. Like, we're not just doing things because we're told to do it. Like, there is a journey in this. We're always seeking, we're always learning. There's so much knowledge to be learned, you know. So anyway, that's
I think one of the most influential people in my journey was after I became Muslim was an older man named Hashim Allah. He lives in Berkeley now. He's an African American brother in the community who kind of took me under his wing. When I first became part of the community, there's sometimes a pressure on a new Muslim to kind of take on the cultural aspects of whatever larger community you're coming into. They want to subsume you into certain kind of etiquettes and certain kinds of ways of looking, and certain kinds of ways of talking, and ways of gesturing, etc. And sometimes that can be very alienating, and you can lose a bit of yourself. I remember I started dressing differently, and started like walking differently, and like kind of being more like, you know, like maybe what one would think of like when they think of the word uncle in the mind. You start like trying to appease that older crowd because they're the seniors in the community. And I remember he took me to the side once and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Is that really who you are?" And that was like a really big kind of punch in the gut, and that led to me being much more comfortable in my own skin. And then he also taught me, he was he grew up in the 70s, in the 80s, and in California, the 70s and 80s was still a very socially active time. So he was an individual who taught me about some of the social movements of America, Black Panthers, right or wrong, Black Panthers, Weather Underground, some of the groups that led me to becoming an active participant in the last few years up to today in things like SJP. And he taught me how to look at those movements and see the good in them, and then how those things are parallel with Islamic values of social justice, and how to think about my community and the way forward as a countercultural movement instead of just moving along with the consumerist machine that we're all kind of stuck in. And so that type of inspiring personality, I think, is really extremely pivotal for anybody's personal growth. So I think that would answer my
So I think the person in my way to looking for Islamic is the sister Ahadab that I mentioned. I met in downtown Islamic Center. And the first time when I met her, she just finished her Human prayer, and then she started to teach me how to pray Salat. And then she sent me the link, lots of PDFs, like how to do the things and what is the names of God, like 99 names and lots of those basic things. And also she introduced me to the Chicago Halakha, and also the AIC, the Introduction to Islamic. And also we have an instructor there, his name is Mac and his wife Aliyah, they both converted to Islamic, and they teach us lots of introduction to Islamic too. And also Sister Hadab, every time when she went back to Jeddah or Medina, she bring me the Chinese version from Medina, and also bring me some gifts from her family, like the clothes, the long clothes that I can put on when I do the salat. I don't need to put on this just one piece, and also the beads and other things. So I think she's the person who has the most important influence on my way.
I think with that we will conclude our panel. One last warm welcome, a warm round of applause for our panelists. So I honestly hope you all benefited as much as I did. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your stories, and it's always nice to see another perspective. Everyone has their own personal journey. I know whatever faith denomination you are, or whatever you identify with, we all want to find that universal peace within ourselves, and my hope is for all of us to find that one day. So I want to highlight one thing that Sister Sadia said. She said, she always had these questions. How does American culture mesh with our traditional Islam? Where do they come together? And to answer that question, I want to remind you guys about our lecture tonight in this very room, 7 o'clock, 7 or 7:30? 7 o'clock, yes, with Sister Zahira. She is the chaplain over at Northwestern, and she will come and talk to us about the secret lives of Muslims, contemporary and modern American Muslims, and how we live our lives. So if you guys are interested, I definitely welcome you to that. That is tonight, and with that we conclude today's activities. Tomorrow we have one of my personal favorites, the Islamic art exhibit, which is in David NPR, showcasing various students' artwork. And there's also you can get your own personal tile with your name in Arabic calligraphy and freehand. So that's super, super cool. Don't miss out on that. Even if you can come for 20 minutes, get that sleeve. That's always awesome. And yeah, so in the back there's programs, all the events. If I wanted to talk about it, I'd go for another half hour. But thank you all so much for coming. I don't know if there's food, but yeah, help yourself if there is any left. And yeah, have a lovely day. Thank you.